Multiversus is a relatively small game. It had, and still does have to a degree, insane potential, but it was a textbook case of greed ruining any chances a game has. In this video, I'm going to break down this game's entire history and every flaw that it currently has. Let's start with the history lesson. Multiversus was officially announced in November of 2021 after a few leaks already slipped through the cracks. The hype was insane before any gameplay was even shown. We had an entire brand new studio that was backed by the entertainment titan Warner Brothers, and the possibilities were endless. Before you knew it, dozens of dream rosters were being posted every day, debates about how the game should be balanced and what mechanics should be added in every comment section or post you could find. The skeptics pointed out the numerous failures of games that had an identical premise to Multiversus. Many believed nothing could overthrow Smash as the dominant fighting game, but none of these stopped the hype train or the numerous hopium huffers. Launch day. Multiversus came out on July 19th of 2022. The honeymoon phase wouldn't be over for a while, but many pointed out the glaring issues the game already had. The game launched with a free-to-play model which appealed to some but not the majority. We also had a 2v2 mode as the main experience the developers pushed, which also rubbed many the wrong way. Whatever, what about the game itself? Performance issues here, server problems there. Balance that was so bad it blew any other fighting game out of the water. No ranked at launch. Pricey shop items with a battle pass. A buy all characters roster. The complaints grew and grew and grew. This is a good time to mention the game released as a beta, as many games that aren't really ready to be games do nowadays. Every one of these issues were raved away by the people who are still stuck in utter denial with the excuse of it being a beta. The developers were very open at the beginning, and to their credit many fixes were made, but as monetization and progression remained mostly unchanged, the newly formed community wondered who was really in control here. On August 16th, we moved from the preseason to Season 1 officially. While the game was still in its open beta, the community was promised a lot of new content over the next months. Little by little, we got 5 new characters, a couple modes, ranked, miscellaneous bug fixes, and of course another battle pass. Was this enough to silence the majority of complaints? No, but it was a welcome start to the majority of the community. As things started to slow down, the player base was more than fed up with the content drip feeding. Post-launch, it was taking forever for things to be released, and the constant delays on just about everything the devs promised didn't help much either. The player count was rapidly dwindling, and the community was slowly falling apart. Season 2 was the only chance for PFG to redeem themselves, and they had a lot to do. Season 2 comes out after yet another delay. About a month and a half goes by, and the community starts to become confused. Why has there only been one character when more were promised? Confusion continues. No word from the devs. The season is announced to be longer than initially planned under the guise of giving more players time to do the battle pass. This is strange though, as no new content has been added to the game in months and people were suspicious. After a couple months, we got this message. Multiversus will return early 2024. Thank you for your support throughout our open beta. The feedback and inspiration has been amazing. On June 25th, we'll be closing the Multiversus open beta as we prepare for our launch in early 2024. We plan to be back and better than ever with new content, features, modes, and more when the game returns next year, and we will ensure that all your progression and content will carry over. In the meantime, please stay tuned for updates as we work towards the next phase of Multiversus. The devs had dropped all plans to continue the game as it was, and we got told to expect a re-release in early 2024. Using retrospect and the small bits and pieces the devs let out, we now know that Player First Games just did not have the backing for something the size of Multiversus. They knew that the hype they had was rapidly draining due to their inability to keep up with the pace that a live service game required. They also wanted to completely overhaul the game into Unreal Engine 5 and change the game internally as a whole. However, the small part of the community that remained did not have the foresight we did. Many players thought this would be the end of Multiverse and they were just doing this as some elaborate plan to avoid a lawsuit or something similar. Some believed Player First Games seemed like genuine people that truly cared about the game they were working on. It also was just insane to believe the claim of inadequate resources because, the game's servers were shut down a couple months later as promised, and all we could do was wait. The devs retained radio silence. The first 3 months of 2024 came and went. Hope was an all-time low when the devs started talking again. Okay, that's a good sign, but we know who you guys are. Where's the actual proof that this entire past year hasn't been wasted? Then, on May 20th, 2024, we got this. The hype train was instantly back on the rails. Jason, Joker, Agent Smith, okay, weird choice. Multiversus was back in the public spotlight, and now all Player First Games had to do was not mess it up. They messed it up. On May 28th, 2024, the game was finally re-released, 428 days after it was discontinued, and it was essentially unplayable due to server issues which were only resolved after 2 days of maintenance. Well, that was an extremely easy way to lose 25% of the people willing to give your game another shot. Let's see what else the game has to. Oh. Console players are getting disconnected every other match, and the lag often makes the game unplayable. This issue, unlike the initial one, was only fully patched about 3 weeks after the game's launch, and it occasionally happens to this day. Holy shit, how did they fuck up this bad? Okay, the game is finally fully functional. Let's see what's been changed. The negative. Well, immediately people noticed that the game felt 2 times slower. This was due to the engine being changed, but even the people who had not touched this game in over a year noticed the difference. The dodge system also felt strange, and the whole game felt less skillful. Wow, that's bad. I'm certain it was definitely well worth the 10% graphical upgrade we got though. We no longer had ranked as it had been completely taken out. The gold system, which was a play to earn progression system, was completely overhauled. Now, we instead had 4 currencies that all do a different thing. Is this sounding familiar yet? All the gold we had saved up was converted into one of these currencies, perk tokens. This was not at all equivalent. Perk tokens are used to unlock perks on the characters gold used to unlock. Now, veteran players were stuck with thousands of a currency that had no use to them because they mostly already had those perks unlocked, and it's extremely cheap to unlock perks in the first place. The character token system, which was now used to unlock characters, was also extremely slow and grindy. For reference, it took me about 24 full hours of play to unlock the Joker, who was of course more expensive as he's new. Don't worry though, because if you use 5 crisp dollars in the Gleamium shop, you can get that character right now. They had a new game mode called Rifts for some reason. I know there are fans of single player modes and multiplayer fighting games, but it's extremely out of place and also rushed somehow. Like for example, instead of making the AI actually difficult, they just make it do more damage and take less knockback. This dumbass mode wasn't exempt from the awful grind either, as it takes hours to complete. Cool if it's completely optional, but not if you lock a new character behind beating it. We also lost the ability to see match stats to switch characters on rematch. Hitboxes were still horrible and were even worse now that the game was slower. The game had a lot of negatives, but let's talk about the positives as well. Balance was much better. We had issues with certain characters, but everyone was in a much better state for the most part. Velma was completely gutted for no reason. Like, yeah, I guess she used to be mildly annoying, but nowhere near bad enough for this. It doesn't even seem like this came from an actual place of intention, because it's more likely that she's got messed up in the process of switching engines. Iron Giant, on the other hand, had so many issues in infinite combos they had to be removed a couple weeks in. Many characters had unnecessary move changes, but for the most part it was positive. The Prestige shop was also a nice free addition that awards grinding more and has pretty cool cosmetics. Returning players got many things for free, including the battle pass as well. We got 2 new characters and more moving on, and the devs started acting more vocal again and community changes were eventually added. The future of Multiversus seemed bright, and you're probably wondering what the game is like now and what the title is all about. Or if you're a frequent of Multiversus, you probably wince at the thought of what comes next or what is going to come next. Right now, we're on the cusp of Season 2. Again? This game absolutely shot itself in the foot, but how? What's going wrong this time? While the issues we discussed a second ago might seem numerous, the game did just come out and people thought that PFG finally got their act together. They thought that everything would be ironed out. Were they right? That question brings us to the final point of this video. What is Multiversus like now, and what does the immediate future look like for this game? While I don't blame the people that believe that PFG would fix the issues at launch, they should have believed with more skepticism, because many, and I mean many of the issues that were present at launch still are, and many things that won't have spiraled out of control into issues. The biggest example of this at the moment is balance, the most important part of the game. While it wasn't a big problem at launch, it sure as shit is now, and it's extremely obvious now that the wider player base has gotten used to the game. The problems that weren't apparent at launch still have not been properly fixed. Velma got a few minor buffs, but she's still weak and definitely a shell of her former self, while Iron Giant doesn't have any infinites anymore, but he's still a pain in the ass to fight and doesn't really feel fair to a majority of the player base. Superman, who was a big issue in the beta, got his busted grab removed, but he's still way too good at stunning and comboing. Batman's juggling ability is unmatched and many of his moves need to be addressed. The newer characters have been extremely broken, but most importantly easy to play. Characters like Marvin and Raindog are just not matched for them. Armor is a busted mechanic, especially considering that not everyone in the game has an ability that breaks it, and even less have ones that do it well. Rock, paper, scissors game design is in full effect here because some characters are just insane against others. This is mostly due to range being inconsistent and not everyone being as fast as everyone else. Realistically, this issue comes from the divide between 2v2s and 1v1s, but it has an absolute 0% chance of even being halfway fixed. Jason is the pinnacle of PFG's inability to balance a character. He released extremely bad due to giant hurt boxes and lackluster moves, but he was severely overtuned after Backlash and has several moves that need to be changed as soon as possible because they're overpowered. But he also has many moves that serve no purpose. All this combined with range issues, and it just culminated into a mess, and that's what this game's balance is, a fucking mess. People act like it's all going to be fixed when rank comes out, but it's not. It's just not. It sure as shit was not last time. Other smaller issues mount quickly, like the grind. It's gotten better, but it still takes forever to achieve a new character, and the battle pass requires you to play every day of the season for at least an hour to get to the end of it. Or the hitboxes and the glue that's seemingly on everyone's sword or hands. It just piles up and makes the game feel like it's going nowhere. It feels awful to play. Okay, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. Now let's focus on the future. You'll notice that this part of the video is the shortest, and that's part of the problem. There just isn't much planned. Season 2 looks like it's shaping up to be pretty bad in my mind for several reasons. As far as characters go, it seems like we're only getting 2 this season, which is lackluster to say the least. We could possibly get more, but it seems unlikely to me and many others going off the past season's presentation. Also, the 2 characters we're getting are Samurai Jack and Beetlejuice. Okay, it's just, if we look at this from a purely marketing perspective, these are not characters that are going to get that much attention. This game relies on man-children soaring out about the next character, and while that is going to happen to an extent, these 2 just do not have the pull that the game needs at the moment. I love Ranked, and while I'll try to put as much effort into it as I can, like I said before, I have no faith in PFG to balance out every last cheesy move that the roster has, and definitely not characters that are so busted that it's grounds for a rework. I am not hopeful about the future of Multiversus. I'm being a realist. Because of the track record we had to go off of here, I mean, I love this game to death and have sunk countless hours into it. But I think that does nothing but give me the ability to know this game's ins and outs. To know the devs like the back of my hand. I know they aren't bad people and have limited resources provided them by Warner Brothers, who are clearly being greedy fucks here, but that does not really change the outcome. And this is where I plan on ending the video a month ago before Season 2 dropped. We are now approaching September and just witnessed the release of Beetlejuice. The funny thing is though, I don't really feel the need to correct anything in the video because nothing has changed. I mean, I wish I could say this was a surprise, but not really. Okay, maybe a couple characters are in a better state, but the good changes were far outshined by the bad ones. I will, however, add a few things. Ranked came out, and to my absolute horror, was a flop. The matchmaking is horrible, and when it launched, we didn't even get best out of 3. We do have it now, but I mean, it's been a month, I fucking hope so. Biggest issue here, though, that was also expected was no major balance changes for Ranked's release. Samurai Jack released in an absolutely overpowered state, and of course was immediately put into Ranked, with no testing at all. He's slightly better now, but you know how slow PFG is to fully fix anything? Beetlejuice came out, and he's fine balance-wise, but they put him behind a paywall for the first few days with absolutely no warning. You know, I tried to come back after quitting Ranked a few weeks ago, and I wish I could show you the expression on my face the entire time. That's really all that needs to be added, but I will throw in a quick I told you so. My god, this is beyond bad. Anyways guys, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one. Buff Rain Dog, and goodbye.